Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss Rishi Sunak's car crash interview with Tory staff Laura Kunsberg today, in which he essentially explained that he has no democratic mandate to govern. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So there was a slight change to my schedule because Rishi Sunak carried out an interview on the first day of his party's conference on the BBC. It was a little bit of a disaster, really. In this video, I'd like to focus on one element, his right to govern. So a lot of people, including many within his own party, say that Rishi Sunak is an unelected Prime Minister because he did not earn the job through a general election. Some Conservatives argue that he's unelected because he was not voted in by the party membership. Now, neither is really true or fair. We don't elect Prime Ministers. It is absolutely true that most people, when using their general election vote, are thinking about which party they would like in government, and part of that calculation is which of the two leaders they would want as Prime Minister. Absolutely true. But in my lifetime, we've had 10 changes of Prime Minister, and only 3 of them became Prime Minister as a result of a general election. We elect MPs, and MPs technically decide who the Prime Minister is. For example, at the next election, Labour will almost certainly win a majority and Keir Starmer will become Prime Minister. But it won't be a majority voting for Starmer to become Prime Minister. In theory, he could get fewer votes than the Conservatives and still be Prime Minister by being more efficient with the votes and just winning more seats. Now, this won't happen, but it is mathematically possible with first past the post. Also, the Labour Party could say, let's say a few days after the election, go, thanks very much, Keir. We appreciate the general election win. Now we want someone else to actually run the government. And they could replace him with a different Labour MP. Again, won't realistically happen, but it's all fine in the Constitution. So whether Rishi Sunak is a valid Prime Minister with a mandate from the public has got absolutely nothing to do with how he became Prime Minister. The mandate derives from the suite of policies which voters are deemed to have backed in the previous general election, even if it's not a majority of them. The winning manifesto is the mandate to govern. When Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister last year, he talked of delivering on the manifesto. He recognised that the manifesto was the mandate. You know, that is what he argued at the time gave him the mandate, that he was going to deliver on the manifesto, and what he said was constitutionally accurate. As long as Sunak tries his best to deliver on the manifesto with only necessary adjustments based on new information, you know, like global pandemic and a major war in Europe, then as long as he retains the confidence of the House of Commons, he has a mandate to govern. But then, today, Sunak basically trashed the entire basis of his government. It's been clear for some time that Sunak has been reneging on the manifesto, and not because of changes to the economic landscape or other factors not known about in 2019, but because he either wants to or just thinks it's politically expedient. Laura Kunsberg, long-time Tory agent at the BBC, pointed out that it is a fact that nobody voted for the policies which Sunak is now pursuing. She asked if he was comfortable with that. And Sunak made no attempt to twist the narrative into somehow doing precisely what people voted for. He came straight out eagerly and said, yeah, he was comfortable changing the policies from ones people voted for to ones that they did not, on the basis that he thought it was right. Now that right there is what an absolute monarch would think. Oh, the peasants don't know what's good for them. I am wise and have been ordained by God, so I shall be deciding things. But the leader of a democratic system is supposed to do what the public think is right. Even when Boris Johnson was clearly acting against the wishes of the majority of the public, he claimed he was being guided by voters, not his own beliefs. Sunak is clearly not interested in the will of the people line. In fact, he doubled down and said he did it last summer as well. His argument was, well, I've already defied the will of the people, I should carry on doing so. His entire response was about what he wanted to do, what he thought was important. Yes, this absolute train wreck of a response was born of that political naivety I keep talking about, but it also highlights his incredible conceit. Even someone not trained in the dark arts of political interviews would not say something like that if they were motivated to be focused on the public's needs. Like at one point, he even acknowledged that people would be upset at it. So he's recognising that what he's doing is not popular, but he was going to do it anyway because he thinks it's the right thing to do. This is the behaviour of a dictator, not a prime minister. I mean, think about what the term prime minister even means. I mean, the prime bit just means first, of course, the leader. But minister literally means to act on the authority of another. On whose authority is Sunak acting? See, it used to be the monarch. It used to mean acting on the authority of the monarch. That's a long time ago. Now it's the people. And that authority is derived from the manifesto. And Kronberg came back to the manifesto, reminding Sunak that he stood on it. She rattled off the major features of it, Brexit aside, and said that none of this was now happening. Sunak tried to shift ground by ignoring almost everything she said, but focusing on the fact she was saying he'd binned net zero targets. He goes, no, I haven't done that. She says, no, well, you've shifted them. He says, no, I haven't. It's like, well, no, this isn't good enough. The manifesto didn't just commit to net zero targets. It committed to specific actions in order to achieve those targets. Sunak has thrown them in the bin. Sunak tried to say that the way the targets are met is actually down to government policy, that they can just make it up as they go along. This is untrue. If your manifesto just contains a target but no information on how you'll achieve it, okay, sure. And sometimes they can be a bit ambiguous. But no manifesto sets a target without really saying how they're going to do it. And that is because if they did, then in the election campaign, people would ask, journalists would ask, the opposition would ask very awkward questions about how you're going to do it. So the manifesto did contain the policies, the specific policies about how it was going to achieve it. It's not for the government to decide afterwards. You know, those policies are set. Changing them is to abandon the mandate from the people. And I've said before, if some unforeseen event forces a change, we've had a couple of unforeseen events, then okay, you can justify some changes, but in that case, you should be able to get some cross-party support as well. Now Sunak falls back, as he keeps doing, on the idea that he is doing what he thinks is best for the long-term future of the country. But he's got no evidence the public agrees. If he really believes that the public support chucking the last manifesto in the bin, he should call an election and put a new one to the public. But despite Kronberg getting some plaudits today for actually calling Sunak out a few times, which I thought was generous praise based on being accustomed to a very low bar, she did not seem to make that point. Nor will the media at large. You know, they would if this were a Labour Prime Minister behaving this way. But the point needs to be made. People vote for a manifesto. If the government believes that manifesto to be in error, they cannot just rewrite it. They must put a new one to the public. People fling a lot of words around these days, you know, very often not entirely accurately. A lot of people describe various things they don't like as undemocratic, as if that's somehow an argument. But if the government's mandate is derived from the manifesto, then ripping it up and rewriting it without putting it to the people first is surely objectively not just undemocratic, but even anti-democratic. Like, if you can just make up policies which contradict your manifesto, what's to stop a government getting Parliament to say, suspend democracy altogether? I don't mean stop elections. You'll always have elections. Dictatorships have elections. What's to stop them introducing laws which allows for the imprisoning of political opponents in order to prevent a credible choice in an election? You know, we should be demanding that when a party makes a series of campaign promises, they do not deviate without ensuring they've got support. Allowing the precedent of a Prime Minister to just announce that he or she is happy to bin the public mandate because they think differently is the thin end of the wedge. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.